Hello, everyone, and welcome to the latest edition of the Manufacturers Efficiency Webinar Series, where today we're going to be discussing getting a hold on your facility supplies expenses. My name is Rich Bello. I'm a strategic partner with Schooley Mitchell, where we do cost reduction analysis, joined today by Matt Wiseman from Focal Point Business Coaching, as well as Gina Tabasso from Barracuda B2B Marketing. Just a brief agenda of some of the main topics we're going to touch on today. Facility supplies, kind of a vague term, so we'll get into a little bit of what they are and what they're considered to be. We'll also talk about inventory management, which is a huge portion of the whole idea behind managing those expenses. And then also delivery optimization and some of the ways that could be done effectively, keeping in mind other factors that come into play. So we'll start with the actual supplies and what they consist of. With Schooley Mitchell, we identify facility supplies in 4 different categories. One being facility itself. And what that really entails are your cleaning supplies, their single-use paper products like toilet paper and paper towels, their personal hygiene products like soap and soap dispensers, and their waste and odor products like scents and garbage bags, things of that nature, personal protective equipment as well. Floor mats. So lots of things that you would see around in a facility. Number 2, as we get into office supplies, those get a little bit more specific. That's your paper, your writing utensils, ink, labels and folders for organization, types of things that you would see in a standard office setting. Number 3 is break room supplies. So that's everything from your coffee to like K-cups and single-use drinkware, cups, utensils, single-use utensils, napkins, paper plates, mostly the things that you would see in a break room. And then 4, even more specifically, packaging supplies. So that's everything that will come into play when you're shipping a product or shipping anything really. So it's your boxes, it's your packing materials, it's your tape, it's your labels, everything that you'd need to get a shipment sent out to wherever it needs to go. When we talk about inventory management, as I mentioned a few minutes ago, this is probably the key part of everything with regards to managing these expenses. Do you have enough product in your facility, or do you have too much? And it oftentimes can get forgotten or just disregarded to a certain degree. I have a client actually that I'm working with now who told me that their supplies vendor, the salesperson, actually comes to their facility himself, goes into their supply room, and determines whether or not they need to purchase any additional supplies. So they said, hey, he's a great guy. We've been dealing with him for a long time. He's really nice. And that's great and all, and I'm sure he is. But 9 times out of 10, that person is going to come in and make recommendations based on what's best for their business, which is going to be ordering more supply. So I wouldn't recommend having the vendor, the supplier, come in and make those determinations for you. You need to have a better understanding of what your inventory levels are and how often you need to be ordering new. The other thing about inventory management is the prices. These types of products, a lot of single-use products or high volume usage products, the pricing changes pretty rapidly and pretty inconsistently. And since there's so much bulk purchasing a lot of these items, a lot of the times a few cents here and a few cents there on individual products is not going to be noticed unless you really have a keen eye and have systems in place to maintain what your pricing model is and how your spend is being discharged. So it's something that needs to be kept an eye on, which is also a big reason why we often recommend having contracts in place with your suppliers, so that you're not just depending on whatever the going rate is, because as I said, that fluctuates pretty regularly. But if you have a contract in place, you'll at least have an idea of how those prices may go up and how frequently they may go up, and there's more control over what you're paying for. Then the third item here, specialty items, and how they could be a bit of a trap. This speaks specifically to your box sizes, especially for manufacturers. If we're sending out a product, a lot of times suppliers can come to the table with the idea of, well, we could create a box size for you that's perfect for this specific product, and it's going to fit in really snug. It's going to look great. And we could do that for all of your different products. So you're creating different box sizes for every individual product, where you could just order one box size that's big enough for either all of your products or at least similarly sized products, and then add in additional packing materials where necessary to make sure that it's a snug fit inside of the box. So the specialty box sizes, maybe as a one-off, maybe for a specific reason, maybe it makes sense, but as a swooping, all-encompassing practice, probably not the best idea if you're looking to keep your costs in line. Then we get to delivery optimization, and a lot of this comes down to your facility and the space that you have in your storage area for these products that you're ordering. We know that suppliers and vendors in this space will charge minimum delivery charges if you're ordering and you're not over a certain volume of spend. So they'll charge you extra to come out if you're not purchasing a lot in each shot. So it makes the most sense to try and buy in bulk and get those overall order totals high enough so that you don't get hit with the minimum delivery charge. But the other side of that is, do you have space to put all of that product that you're purchasing? Because you're likely not going to be going through it very quickly. It's probably going to last a month or a few months. So you need to have the space to store it without completely making your supply room unusable or not being able to navigate around it to get to the stuff when you need it. So there's a balancing act that has to be done there. Similarly, when we talk about the products themselves and non-optimal pack sizes, this is where when you're talking about a manufacturing facility or any large facility where there's a lot of people on site and they're going through a lot of these facility supply products on a regular basis, it probably doesn't make the most sense to buy in small pack sizes. So if we're talking about toilet paper, for instance, you probably don't want the pack of 6 where you have to buy a lot of those packages. You'd probably be better suited with the pack of 36 that you're going to get a better price for, and you're going to go through it pretty regularly, if not once a week, maybe once every 2 weeks or twice a month. It'll make sense to buy in that type of bulk for a lot of your products because you will go through them on a regular basis pretty quickly. But again, it comes down to what you're able to store and how much you're able to store. But having an idea of those capabilities of your facility and your supply room plays a big part and a big role in this whole process of trying to reduce your costs. And then delivery verification, that's something that most suppliers, if not all suppliers, offer, where you're checking to make sure if you're getting charged that they have verified that they've actually delivered the products that you're being charged for a delivery on. So that's both in regards to if you have a client portal on their website, they should show that information there, but also just from a receiving standpoint, making sure that you're keeping track of the stuff that's coming in and that it lines up with what you're paying for. Now we get into what it takes to lower these costs. And we discussed kind of more broadly the different areas where those costs can be controlled and can be limited. But the specific strategies to doing so are a little bit more in depth. And these are the three general topics that we'll discuss in regards to doing so. The first one is really just knowing what it is that you're spending and how you're spending it and how it relates specifically to your production and your manufacturing, like the products that you're producing and putting out to the market. Do they play an impact on the amount of supplies that you're buying and how regularly you're doing so? So, for instance, if you have a busy season and your machines are running more frequently then, or you have more employees on the floor during that time period, you're probably going to be going through supplies more frequently. So knowing that and how it relates to your purchasing on the supplies end is important for your whole what we call cost procurement planning. So knowing when your purchasing is going to go up based on what's going on in your business is very important. So you need to keep track of that and have an understanding of not only your usage and your purchasing, but the pricing also, which we talked about earlier. Where if you have a contract in place, it's easier to do so and be able to keep track of, okay, this is the rate, this is when it can go up, this is how much it could go up by. Because the whole idea of all of this and the cost procurement planning is how it impacts your budget and what you're spending on these expenses. So when you're budgeting and forecasting, you want to be able to have all of the data points in hand so that you could do so accurately to the best of your abilities and know what you're getting into. Because as your production fluctuates and your business hopefully increases, you want to be able to account for that on the supply side and what you can expect to be an increase in those expenses. The next part is actually having conversations with your vendors and your suppliers. And this is the part where most companies think there isn't much value in. A lot of the times what I'll hear is, well, we like our supplier. They've been good to us. The products are good. The service has been good. They're there when we expect them to be there. They deliver it on time and quickly. Everything is good. And that all may be the case, and hopefully it is for everyone. But that doesn't mean that there isn't still opportunity on the price side to find some better rates and to find some savings. So it doesn't have to be a hard conversation where you're coming at, hey, we need to get the price down by this percentage, or we're going elsewhere, or anything like that. It just could be a question, something along the lines of, hey, we've been with you guys for a long time. We're very happy with the relationship. We think we've been good clients to you guys. Is there anything we can do to improve our pricing, improve our rates, or get some additional discounts? What does that look like? And maybe it's something that has to do with your volumes. And if you get to a certain level of purchasing, maybe you get an additional discount. But just having that conversation to know what that looks like also helps with your budgeting and setting that cost procurement plan. So you have to have those conversations. Alternatively, it also helps to have conversations with other suppliers in the industry and other companies that provide those same products. And it doesn't have to mean that you're definitely making a switch, but it helps you to understand what the marketplace is like. And if you are getting a good deal or good rates from your current supplier or not. And most people, I think, are familiar with these types of calls from alternative vendors that say they could save you money. And most of the time we just see it as another solicitation and we say, hey, we don't need this at this time. We're happy with our current provider and just let it go. But what I would suggest is to actually have that conversation. And it doesn't mean that you're going to switch, but it at least gives you the opportunity to get a proposal, to get a quote on what other options are in the marketplace, because then that also helps you when you go back to your incumbent vendor. It gives you more data to say, hey, we know at our volume of purchasing, other places in the marketplace, we could be getting this rate. So is there anything you guys can do that's closer to that than where we're at right now? So all of that stuff is important, and it helps give you a better perspective on what is possible. And when you do get those quotes, maybe it does make you think about potentially switching if your incumbent vendor isn't willing to budge or isn't willing to play ball, so to speak, and help you out a little bit, especially if you've been a long-term client and a good client. And then the last part of this is actually implementing this cost procurement plan, as I mentioned earlier. So once you have all that data, you know what you're spending, you know how the volume of your purchases is influenced by production on the lines and what you're doing with your business, and you know the pricing, and you know what opportunities there are to reduce your pricing. That gives you the data points that you need to put that budget in place and to see, okay, this is what we're forecasting for this year, how much we're going to produce, what our workforce is going to look like, what that means for our supplies purchasing. Now we know what the pricing for those purchases will be for the different products we'll need. This allows us to set a true budget and an accurate budget, and one that can be altered based on production levels and needs of those supplies. Of course, all of this information and these last 3 steps that I discussed, they take some time, and they take a dedication and a willingness and a desire to actually find these savings and control your expenses better. But the hardest part of all of this, most of the time, is the time, because most companies that I've come across don't have people whose sole job is just to do this, to do cost procurement and to follow each invoice that they're getting from their vendors and make sure that they're getting charged what their contract says they're supposed to be charged, and is having conversations with alternative vendors, and is holding the vendor that they're using accountable when there are mistakes on the bills and things of that nature. So all that is to say, this is something that my company, Schooley Mitchell, does for our clients. We do it in full, and this is our business. So we do have the time to do it, and we do have specialists in all of these categories that are going to look through the bills and make sure that the prices are what they're supposed to be. And if we find errors, we're going to call the vendor out on those errors and get the refund or credit applied to our client's account. I think the best part of the service that we provide is the only way we're compensated is if we find savings for our client. So all that negotiating that I was mentioning earlier, we do that on behalf of our client. If we find them savings, our compensation is a percentage of those savings. So really, our clients can only come out for the better with working with us, because they're going to save some money. They'll just share it with us for a short period of time, and then they get to keep all of it. To that point, I have a couple of examples of how we've worked with clients in the manufacturing space in reducing their facility supplies expenses. Client A, you could read the details about them, precision manufacturing, doing custom build-to-print machining services and a wide range of different parts. We looked at their facility supplies. They were spending over $50,000 a year on various supplies, and we were able to find them over $8,000, so 16% in savings with those costs. Another client was involved in metal recycling, and they were using 4 different vendors for their various supplies expenses. We came in, we were able to consolidate down to 2 vendors and saved them $42,500 over the course of our time working with them. So again, that was 17% in savings, and those materials were wide ranging from boxes to packaging materials all the way to their coffee. So as I discussed earlier, there's lots of things that are included here, and it's a lot of stuff that sometimes is overlooked, but there is opportunity to find savings, and it could be pretty substantial, significant savings. A little bit more on the background of my company, Schooley Mitchell. Been in business over 20 years, worked with over 35,000 clients now throughout the US and Canada. Myself is included amongst the 300 plus offices throughout the US and Canada that are doing this service and are working with clients to find these savings. And we're now over $1 billion in documented savings in the time that the company's been in business. This is a little bit of the details of how we work with our clients. So the first phase is just a conversation, learning more about the client, how they work, what they're using. For the case of today, facility supplies, we talk about, what is it that you're purchasing? How often are you purchasing it? Do you feel like you're overstocked or underserved? Are there specific items that you need to have that you can't switch brands or product types? We get all that information so we have a real understanding of what our client needs and make sure that anything we recommend is going to align with those needs. Phase 2 is the negotiation part. We're going to talk to their incumbent vendor and hopefully get that vendor to reduce their price so nothing changes other than our client is paying less. But we'll also talk to alternate vendors to see if there's opportunities there to possibly make a switch if it makes sense to do so. The third phase is we present our findings and our recommendations to our client, and they determine whether or not they want to move forward with any of the recommendations we make. And if they decide that they do, in phase 4, we handle all of the implementation. We get the new contracts, we handle any switches and services if that's something that the client decides to do, and we verify each month throughout the term of our agreement that the new prices are being adhered to by the vendor. There aren't any mistakes, and our client truly is optimized in what they're paying for these supplies. Just to summarize, as I mentioned earlier, these facility supplies are products that are used so regularly and so frequently. A lot of times they are just taken as a given. Hey, this is something that we need. The price is what it is. We have to get it. There's not much we could do. But that's not really always the case. There is something that you could do. The second point here, we talked about it in terms of delivery and being able to optimize that with some bulk purchasing. If you're able to handle it with your storage space, that's a great thing to do. And then kind of what I was just talking about Schooley Mitchell and what we do in terms of maintaining the right inventory levels. That's part of our process too, specifically with facility supplies. We're going to be in touch with our client to make sure both at the beginning of the project and also throughout the project that the supplies and the deliveries from the vendor are in line with the usage of the client and they're not being under delivered or over delivered. So that's all part of what we do with our service. With that being said, I'll open it up. Matt, Gina, anything that you guys would like to add or any questions that you'd like to pose?
As always, even though you're my partners and I've known you and I know what you do, I always learn something in our webinars. We always learn from each other, and that's the beauty of partnering. So this was really detailed, and I liked that you got into the nitty-gritty of the specific costs that you can help with. I also wanted to apologize because My office manager, Toby Tabasso, made his cameo appearance in our video today. He just waltzed up onto my chest and wanted head rubs. So he's our new manufacturer's efficiency webinar series partner, and he can
Perfect.
talk to you about catnip and fish.
Yeah, I was gonna say maybe he was trying to tell you that he needed more supplies.
Provided some comic relief,
Yeah.
Gina, so not a problem. Yeah, Rich, I'll more of a comment than a question. I like you touched on something that I've come across or seen in my career, with purchasing functions within a company where it's very attractive to buy, to go up to that next quantity in an order to get a price break, so your per unit cost looks more attractive. But then you hit on storing that additional inventory as a factor to consider. The other one is having that uh, more cash tied up in the form of inventory, right? So okay, it looks great to get a lower per unit cost by going up from, say, an order quantity of 10 to an order quantity of 50, but now you've got that much more cash tied up in inventory, sitting in inventory, that could be deployed for other uses, with other potentially more valuable uses. So just I'll throw out another variable to keep in mind when suppliers are looking at optimizing their order quantity, inventory management, etc.
Yeah, it all has to tie back to knowing your usage at your
Yeah,
facility and how quickly are we actually going to go through this stuff, because you're right, it doesn't make sense to buy 6 or 10, 36 packs of toilet paper when you're only using one or maybe two a month, because then there you go, that's 6 months worth that's just sitting around, uh, and you're not going to use it for a while. So you have to have an idea, or you have to really focus in on what your usage is and what it makes sense to do in a timely fashion.
yeah, yeah.
I couldn't help but think, this is kind of what we do at home. Everybody operates a different way, but there are some people who, buy 6 packages of toilet paper and put them in their garage so that they always have some on hand. There are people who operate where they don't go to the store to buy one till they're on their last roll of toilet paper. So, are you keep a spare mentality, or are you like live hand to mouth mentality? And we do that decision based on no data at home. It's just preference. Where when you're running a facility this big with these kinds of operating expenses, an audit like yours is so important, because then you have the data to not do it on whim, but to make a decision based on reasonable accountability and spending. So I really love that you brought that up, and I couldn't help but think about bring it home to the level of microcosm in my own home. And um, like there are some people who only buy when they have coupons or when something's on sale. They save money that way, but then they've got tons of storage. So it's really interesting to think about it in that mindset. And a manufacturing facility really needs to run differently than a household. And I think a lot of people are doing it the same because that's how they operate.
Yeah, it's what they're accustomed to, and
Mm-hmm.
they don't make the separation. Yep, all good points. Right, here's us, and you'll notice our QR codes on the screen, which will take you directly to each of our websites and the opportunity to schedule a free consultation with us, just to have a conversation if there's something that you're interested in learning more about. Obviously, I discussed what I do today in terms of cost reduction, Matt in terms of helping you plan to grow your business and identify opportunities to be more efficient in the way you run it. And then Gina with a large focus on your marketing efforts and how to build your revenue side of your business. So please feel free to reach out to any or all of us, and we'd be happy to speak with you and see how we might be able to help. Just some future dates or topics, I should say, for our series here. Next month, Gina's going to talk about AI, which seems to be the hot topic of conversation in most areas at this point, but she's going to discuss how it's revolutionizing manufacturing. Then in November, Matt's going to get into succession planning and keeping continuity within your business when you as an owner are planning to move out of it. And then I'll be back in December to talk about merchant services, your credit card fees, and how those can be a huge expense that often, again, goes overlooked, but there are opportunities to reduce it. Again, thank you to everyone for joining us. If you do have any questions, feel free to reach out to us. You had the QR codes a few slides ago. My contact information is there, but we would love to speak with you, and we'll look forward again to presenting again next month for the next installment of the Manufacturer's Efficiency webinar series. Thanks, everyone.